Thank you for introducing me, and I would like to thank the organizers, the Institute of Strategic Thinking, for inviting me to this conference. And my presentation is a kind of a brief analysis of the actual reasons, main features, and possible implications for the Kashmir region after Jammu Kashmir lost its special status within the Indian Union. My report could be much different from the views which were represented today, and I'm going to make it in three different parts. The first part is dedicated to the political dividends of a hardline policy of Bharatiya Janata Party, as in case of Jammu Kashmir and its national policy, national security issues. The Kashmir issue, with its complex historical backgrounds and unresolved border disputes between India, Pakistan, and China, has always been a permanent destructive factor to the regional stability. And the question of disputed territories of Jammu Kashmir, since the integration of this princely state into the Indian Union, was supplemented by the existence of a single Indian state with the Muslim majority and with broad autonomy. We will put aside in the Pakistan direct military confrontations and pay attention to the fact that secular politics of the Congress Party did not prevent Jammu Kashmir from a large-scale insurgency in 1980s, late 80s, beginning of 1990s. And the rise of domestic separatist movements in Jammu Kashmir at the period was largely caused by a short-sighted policy of the central government towards the political rights of the Muslim population, also poor economic situation, as well as the involvement of such extremist groups as Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba at a later stage. Massive violence from both sides was followed by massive violations of civil liberties of Kashmiri people. Since that time, the factor of instability in Jammu Kashmir has been largely perceived in New Delhi through a prism of separatism backed by Pakistan. And after a period of relative, of course, in commas, relative peace, the situation in Jammu Kashmir began to deteriorate since the beginning of 2010s. It's a kind of simplification, but I think that is the start of the last period of deterioration of the situation due to poor governance of central and local authorities, weak law implementation, and problems of corruption. So the next significant rise of Kashmiri Muslims opposition movements happened in July 2016 after Burhan Wani, a famous leader of Kashmiri separatist group Hizbul Mujahideen, has been killed by the Indian security forces. Significant disturbances and violent street protests within Muslim-inhabited part of Jammu Kashmir were accompanied with not just separatist slogans, but also calls for jihad. And the number of local militants enlarged, and the Kashmir Valley remained unrest in that time. And the situation provoked further alienation of the Kashmiri Muslims, especially I would underline this Kashmiri youth, and a rise of communal tensions across India. And now I should focus on the influence of the security situation in Jammu Kashmir as it was to the strategic of Bharatiya Janata Party policy since 2014. It seems that this was a first turning point when a rhetoric of Kashmiri separatism was used against Prime Minister of India at demonstrations of left-wing groups on university campuses, media debates, and public platforms across India during 2016. As a result, such liberal pro-separatist discourse in Indian mass media and social media caused serious discontent not only from the ruling party, I mean BJP government, but from the Hindu majority in India. In return, a hardening of views of Indian society towards the issue of Kashmiri separatism was in line with the rising Hindutva ideology promoted by BJP and Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. An observer such foundation expert, his name is Aijaz Ahmad Wani, he underlines the fact that Indian mass and social media played a crucial role in the coverage of the disturbances in Kashmir, labeling all Kashmir Muslims as terrorists and fueling further intolerance towards them. At the same time, Indian politicians were expressing concerns of secessionist aspirations of Jammu Kashmir government. Against this background, and in face of the unrest in the Kashmir Valley, was traditionally perceived and promoted, of course, in New Delhi as a result of a proxy war strategy from Pakistan. Therefore, downgrading our special status of Jammu Kashmir was likely considered by the BJP government as a way not only to raise a permanent threat for the national security, but also to establish direct control over its most volatile states. And such a tough step could be warmly encouraged by the Hindu population, Hindu majority, in India in case of a further deterioration of the situation in Jammu Kashmir. The Pulwama terror attack by a suicide bomber in Jammu and Kashmir on February became such a trigger. And it is definitely a second turning point which boosted a tough reaction from Prime Minister of India. And the fact is that a rapid answer for the Pulwama attack by an Indian airstrike to the Balakot camp in Pakistan led to wide support of this tough foreign policy of BJP within the Indian society. And in fact, it seems that such a hard response was chosen as a very advantageous step to support the pre-election campaign of BJP, as there had been certain problems after the elections to several legislative assemblies by the end of 2018. And against that background, point of revocation of the Article 370 was re-included in the BJP manifesto to the Lok Sabha in April 2019. The fact is that it was declared from the very beginning of the BJP first governance in 2014, but in approximately 2015 it was called off due to some coalition needs for the ruling party. And rising support amongst the Hindu society to the BJP hardline policy provided Bharatiya Janata Party with solid positions in the Lok Sabha after recent general elections held in May. In such circumstances, the abolition of a wide autonomy of Jammu Kashmir could now be executed and promoted by BJP for the majority of India's population as a unique solution for the security stability in Jammu Kashmir. But the main obstacle was the very nature of the Article 370, and now I should proceed to the second part about the controversies or the revocation of the Article 370 and measures which were undertaken by the government of India. Maybe I should make a kind of a disclaimer, because I am not an expert in India's constitutional law and hardly give a definite answer about the actual contradictions of the revocation. And if we remember the official position of Indian mass media, central Indian newspapers, for example, of the Times of India, the right to modify the constitution on subjects related to Jammu Kashmir allowed President of India to make some changes in the Article 370. That in turn opened a path to legal establishment of the direct rule of New Delhi. However, a former editor of the Hindu newspaper and a co-founder of the Warren internet resource, his name is Siddharth Varadarajan, he points out that although Article 370 is listed as a temporary provision, It is a basic structure of the constitution and cannot be done away without approving these changes by the Jammu Kashmir Constituent Assembly, which had preferred to render it permanent before it was dissolved in 1957. And according to Mr. Varadarajan, the revocation confronts the very principle of federalism in India. And he also considers that these political measures are implemented in order, quoting here, to accelerate the Hinduization of the Indian polity and bring in votes from the rest of the country, even if the political and security situation in the states deteriorates. End of quote. And in other words, the needs for centralization around one political center and one national religion define such measures of the BJP-led government to a greater degree. The abolition of the Article 35A against that background allows people from all over India to own property in territory that had been earlier reserved only for the Kashmiri residents. And if you perceive these changes in terms of Hinduization, then you may imagine that the BJP long-standing goal is to change ethno-religious population structure in the valley of Kashmir towards the increasing of the Hindu population in time. Of course, you may perceive that these changes are for the economic development of an underdeveloped state in India, but the question is that massive investments to improve the economic situation in Jammu Kashmir could hardly flow to a land with unmet social grievances where local elites are not on the side of New Delhi. And it seems that there is hardly a way for the Kashmiri Muslims to perceive these changes positive so far. The Kashmiri Muslims would have definitely shown strong impatience to the unilateral actions of the central government of India if this swift revocation had not been accompanied by unprecedented security measures, post-curfew, massive presence of militarized security forces, communicational blackouts, which included suspension of landlines, cell phones, and internet. Moreover, 7 Jammu and Kashmir political leaders, among them former local government chief ministers, were preemptively taken under house arrest without an indictment. And these measures are completely not democratic in essence. And according to the official data of India, as it was by the beginning of October, I think during the last 18 months, more than 106 Kashmiri civilians were killed during Indian Special Forces operation against Kashmiri militants, but I'm not sure that these figures correspond to the actual structure because I don't have unofficial data. And nevertheless, the violence in the valley does not represent a significant escalation so far due to the curfew, communicational blackout, and mobilization for more than, I am not sure about, but it is definitely more than 35,000 paramilitary security troops in a single state. And the fact is that a hardline strategy will bring benefits only during a certain period of time. And therefore, Jammu and Kashmir is to remain the most unrest state in India, although the revocation itself is to reduce socio-economical stability in the region under the direct rule of the central government. And the situation with the rights of the Muslim majority in Jammu Kashmir will stay very complex in the new union territory of India and are of deep concerns now, of course. And it is an open question even for the Indian government. I think if the taken steps of the BJP government resolve the situation with the security or complicated it to a larger degree, to a larger extent. Therefore, the international society should pay close attention to the civil rights violation of Kashmiri Muslims and the violence level in Jammu and Kashmir, as human rights cannot be solely a matter of the internal affairs of states. But The revocation and the possible high-level insurgency in Kashmir Valley is not based exclusively on the Hindu-Muslim religious tensions. That's why we have to pay close attention to the international dimension of the issue. Am I running out of time now? Oh, thank you. And it is a most controversial part because some points may be perceived as very controversial, but this is how I see the situation, how I do see, not how I should see the situation or want to see it. And I hope that there would be rather soft feedback after that, and maybe later we can discuss something else and some issues. The international dimension of the issue, I should start with that. Okay, despite of a rigid position of Pakistan towards the revocation, because it incorporated the disputed territory of Kashmir into the Indian Union, the line of control de facto may be considered now as the actual border between the states, because demands of both India and Pakistan about the disputed territories have little potential to be fulfilled. The United Nations Security Council resolutions on a plebiscite in Kashmir in 1948 and many later ones are largely part of history and can hardly be revitalized due to the actual apathy of the UN organization and different national interests of the United States Security Council member countries. And as for Russia, Russia will more likely not undertake steps against India as its main strategic partner in the region. So, therefore, it seems that any anti-India draft resolution on the issue would be vetoed at the United Nations Security Council. And as for perspective of a direct involvement of a third party to the resolution, according to the similar agreement of 1972 between India and Pakistan, the issues of disputed territories of Kashmir have to be settled on a bilateral basis. And this point, of course, always been fundamental for New Delhi, but of course, understandably, is not suitable for Islamabad so far. It should be underlined in this regard that the United States President Donald Trump offered mediation of the Kashmir dispute during the top-level negotiations with Imran Khan in July 2019. And this offer is likely to be made in order to renew Pakistan as American strategic ally due to a peacemaking process in Afghanistan. Maybe that step could also affect the decision of New Delhi to proceed to revocation and gain direct control over Indian Kashmir. Moreover, the US politics of President Trump is rather incoherent, and the anti-Chinese dimension of his recent political steps defines rising importance of a possible further rapprochement with India. As for China, China is also concerned about the loss of special status of the territory of Ladakh, which now forms another Union territory under the direct rule of New Delhi. And against this background of military standoff in Doklam Plateau in 2017, the revocation of the Articles 370 and 35A may also deeply impact the security situation in the Siachen Glacier and Aksai Chin. 30 seconds. Nevertheless, India and Pakistan are unlikely to resolve their controversies through a conventional war, which would bring only huge economic losses and reputational risks. And for the same reason, no China, no other global players want a full-scale war to begin in the region. However, if one side of a controversy is not satisfied with the actual situation, the controversy will last. Therefore, avoiding of a full-scale war does not imply that there won't be military clashes between the countries along the line of control. And all these issues make the question of a new status of Jammu Kashmir one of the most important to the regional security. Thank you for your attention.